So good morning, everyone. My name is Wang Ying Glasgow. I'm the Adult Services Coordinator. Welcome to Books and Beyond Book Club, which is a Benjamin L. Hook Central Library's daytime book club. So every cloud has its silver lining because we are conducting meeting virtually and we are actually able to get all the great authors around the country. And today we are so excited to have Kenny Werner and as our speaker. And Kenny is the author of Becoming the Instrument, Lessons on Self-Mastery from Music to Life. And we are so glad to have Maria DeBarco, our resident musician and librarian at our humanities department, to serve as the host of today's book talk. So Maria, thank you so much for being our host for today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm really excited about this book, Kenny. And I want to tell our audience a little bit about you. You've been playing piano all your life, classical and jazz, but jazz is your passion, especially the improvisation piece of jazz. And you've played with all kinds of greats: Dizzy Gillespie, Ron Carter, Jack DeJohnette, and Toots Thielman. You are a world-class pianist with a generous and a big heart, willing to share your journey on your path to success. And so your first book, Effortless Mastery, Liberating the Master Musician Within, gives us ways to become spontaneous, fearless, joyful, and disciplined in our various fields. It doesn't have to be music. So now with your new book, Becoming the Instrument, Lessons on Self-Mastery, from music to life, you continue sharing your innate knowledge. So, and I want to quote a couple of famous people. Quincy Jones said this about you, Kenny: perfection, 360 degrees of soul and science in one human being, my kind of musician. And I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you remember, you guys, that's not politically correct, but Herb Albert, after working with Kenny, Herb Alpert, a famous player, wrote, a trumpet player. You guys remember him? He loved the feeling of inventing the music as he went along. And Kenny's method helped him break the BS barrier. So, without further delay, let's hear about your book, Kenny.
All right,
Please.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know. I think in the promotion you had a copy of the book, so people would have seen it there because I don't actually have it here. I just realized
Yeah.
as we were going into. But basically, first of all, what are some of the lessons that someone learns being a musician? I mean, a musician that works. They play and it works. Then it's not like 90% of musicians, they play and they wish they played better. You know, that is a misuse of music. It's a mid-use of a mid misuse of a precious gift given us. Instead, we make it a mirror and we hold it up narcissistically and we say, "How's my music? How's my music today? How's my music today?" And we miss the whole point. Music is for us. It doesn't matter how good you play. It matters what state of mind you're in as you touch the instrument. Now, in my book, I'm talking about becoming the instrument. That is like the end game. You don't think when you play if you become the instrument because an instrument doesn't think. An instrument is played. So I could be the instrument that plays the instrument,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then it brings up several profound subjects. If I'm the instrument, who's playing?
Mm-hmm.
And then a person can link up their deepest held faith about who they think is playing in every sense when the world goes spins, or they may think of it as a certain part of the brain that they've tapped into,
Mm-hmm.
or like neurologically, or maybe there's just a very vague new age idea about there's a divine presence and this divine presence plays through me. But there's a few whatever it is, and the answer is to all those things is yes. Whatever you believe you've designed to be the identity of a power that you can draw on, it can extend your performance, it can extend your inspiration, So what are the qualities that induce that, and what absolutely do you have to get rid of in order to experience it? Everyone talks about this. I was connected to my higher power, and this happened and that happened. But in music, a lot of people can't let go of how good they play or how bad they play. So even if they have every spiritual belief in the world, every new age thing, and they practice it, yoga, qigong, everything, they can become in front of their instrument and then devolve several legs, because this threat of how I might play blocks the true act of playing, which has no consequences. Music has no consequences. It's the mind that creates consequences. The worst thing you could do if you trusted this is play badly, which is nothing at all. But again, to a human, to many humans, playing badly is an absolutely horrible thing that they have to avoid at all costs. Well, the cost of avoiding it is never really finding it.
Mm.
You know, there is a spark in each one of us, and creativity can flow uninhibited, but you've got to drop one of your little demands that it succeed. As long as it has to succeed, you can't really let go. If you can't really let go, then this idea that I am the instrument for another kind of force never really happens. It's just a conversation, it's not an experience. The experience of really being owned by a power comes on the other side of playing well or needing to play well. If you can play terribly and feel the same generosity towards yourself, that's actually mastery. Not whether you play the music perfectly or not. That's one aspect, but a lesser aspect. If you play the music imperfectly and you forgive yourself immediately and really, that's mastery. So it's mastery of life through learning the mastery of music. So, what are the lessons do music have? Well, any jazz player or improviser has to, first of all, here's the discipline. Just because I love myself doesn't mean I'm going to be able to play jazz. So, the purpose of the discipline is to learn a language so well that you generally don't have to think of that language. Now, any of you that speak more than one language, you could, if you're not that good at one of them, it's easier to express your thoughts in English or whatever your primary language is. Well, music is a language, a rhythmic language, a melodic language, and a harmonic language. And if you don't get at least an easy accommodation with those elements, you're always going to struggle. And the struggle alone robs you of the possibility of becoming the instrument. In this case, it's not your ego because if you let go, you're just going to fall off the rails on this piece. So, discipline is meant, let's put it this way, the discipline of practice is like constructing a sail on a sailboat, right? Now, where does the wind come from? It comes from complete surrender. You allow that music to manifest through you, whether it's written music, classical music. In that case, your job is to master the notes on the page. In the improviser's case, he has to master the elements of music: rhythm, harmony, and melody. If you struggle when you play rhythmically, you're not going to let any force touch you because you're trying to manage to make sure you don't get lost, or technique, or whatever you want to say. That's the purpose of the discipline, to remove the blocks between you and your highest force. So if you're a weaver or a painter or an author, I like working with authors because they always say, how do I practice this effortless mastery when I'm trying to write and I can't find my inspiration? And I always say, why are you having trouble? Do you feel anxiousness? I say, what's the most anxious time you have? And they answer with a few things. I say, no, the blank page. And he goes, right, the blank page. So I say, well, why is the blank page cause anxiety? And then they take a few more guesses. And the answer is really much more obvious because you're trying to write something good.
Hmm.
Write something bad and you can fill page after page. But not only that, you can spiritually train yourself to not hold yourself hostage to what is good and what is bad. Your job is to give it, not to judge it at the same time. That's a lesson that can transfer easily from music to life. Making an improviser makes lightning fast decisions. If they're going to hope that they're going to be the right decisions, there'll be no groove at all. So the book talks about you can approach your life from your conscious mind, try to manage everything, make sure all the pieces stay in place, and that you're reasonably liked or even admired, but that's your life. It's the world of thoughts. Or you can enter what I call the space. The space is a non-denominational name, very American, the space. What is it? It is a space, a non-denominational name for that which is expanded way beyond the physical brain, the physical mind. And in the conscious mind, there are tons of concerns and standards that have to be met. From the space, there's nothing you have to do. From the conscious mind, one worries about the future. From the space, one can't conceive of the future because they are actually languishing in the moment. From the conscious mind, you're constantly judging the quality of your work. From the space, you practice loving the quality of your work. So even though that sounds good, you say, well, if I love the quality of my work, how will I make sure it goes forward? Well, this is because most people's understanding is exactly opposite of the truth. From loving what you're doing now, you find how to improve on doing it. By constantly criticizing yourself for what you're doing, you have no idea how to fix it. So becoming content, contrary to popular belief, you don't get better because of a profound discontentment. You get better because of a practiced contentment. If I go like this, my job is not to justify that to you. My job is to receive that. And the more I practice receiving, the wider the creativity becomes. There's a lesson from music. Musicians will, the ones that I would subscribe to, would know what I'm talking about. And many wouldn't. Many musicians would not. They're not any freer than anybody else. They beat themselves up about music the way someone else beats himself up about their tennis game, or someone else beats himself up about their body, or their standing in the community. That is not a quality that musicians are exempt from. To develop the space, you need to withdraw from the room of thoughts and enter the space. Once you do that, a lot of what I say in the book, you say, of course, suddenly this is what it is. And it's a place of more humor, more wonder, less noise, and less judgment. I think most people today can agree that one of their main problems is self-judgment. That makes a quarantine even a smaller quarantine. So I think during the time of quarantine, you want to experience and practice experiencing the unlimited expanse of the inner space, because there's never any. So there's a good example. I learned from music. I get to the gig, piano's out of tune. The drummer's not good. The guy didn't pass, right? Whatever. Everything is funny about it. I can go into the world of thoughts and go, oh, this is unacceptable and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Or I can say, all right, I can see all these conditions cropping up and I don't need to be thinking about them now. So I kind of breathe in and I withdraw into the space. And then the piano starts to sound like it's in tune. And the owner goes in the back and writes a check because he wouldn't dare not pay someone that is expanding like that in their place. And the drummer starts to smile. And by harmonizing yourself, you naturally harmonize your surroundings. So when someone says, how do I develop more love for people? What I learned is that I have naturally the most amount of love for people if I'm actually experiencing self-love. It's not something I have to find in addition. It is the natural result. So one of the practices in playing music or living is practicing self-love, not practicing looking for the right conditions for self. If you're always looking for a reason to self-love, the ego can get in there to make sure you never find it.
Mm.
The only way to find it is to stop looking and come into the moment. So I'll just give you a brief idea of what coming into this space is. Because as small as this example is going to be, I think you'll experience what I'm talking about. So everybody in this room is breathing, right? In a
Yes.
sense, we don't really need breathing exercises. You're all virtuosos. You've been breathing all your life. You were breathing on your worst day. You were breathing on your best day. You know how to breathe. But for 20 seconds, just 20 seconds, I want you to watch it breathe. So, in other words, there's a gizmo in there and it breathes. Watch it breathe in and out, and only for a short time. You ready? Go.
Mhm.
And stop. Just stop what you're doing. Now, one thing you notice is if we stop, it wants to keep going. Instead of us seeing how long we can do it and then it runs out of gas. We go, I stop, but wow, I'm still in that space. I'm looking around, but I'm still in the space. Secondly, the only person I'm seeing right now is Maria, because however this thing is choosing to present itself to me. And Maria, when I said that, when you look at the video, you'll see that even though you closed your eyes, you were looking for something. So we make this simpler than that. And also, I wouldn't close your eyes. Like I'm looking at you right now, and now I'm watching myself breathe, but I'm still looking at you.
Yeah. Hmm. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's the trick.
Okay.
If you simply watch yourself breathe, you're not thinking. And you
Hmm.
want these little seeds to be planted where you can shut off thinking and fall into the space
Okay.
instantly and portably. That's why it's 20 seconds, and that's why you stop. So a musician will be playing and they start playing too much and they get too excited and they go like, and they come back in. A
Hmm.
lesson in life is the same thing. You're feeling the rise of resentment, depression. Well, I don't know, because there's chemical reasons for this stuff too. Anxiety, depression, resentment, fear. That's a big one.
Hmm.
And you see your mind unraveling in that way, and you go, okay, I know you're smarter than me, and I know that you can. If I try to stop thinking, you will press on and keep thinking. I'll keep getting sucked back in. So I know I can't stop you, but I am going to take a break for 20 seconds, and let's do it again. I'm not doing anything spiritual. Get rid of that word. That word's got too much baggage now. The word spiritual's got too much baggage because someone now is expected to be spiritual, right? Like baggage, like bebop, spiritual. Let's drop that word, okay? Now, something in you breathes. For 20 seconds, pick up on it and watch it breathe. Go. Don't make it more than that. That thing that's been breathing, whether you paid attention to it or not. But luckily for you, it chooses to continue to breathe. You're watching it do it for a little bit. And stop. Now you go back to what you're doing and you say, okay, I was worried about my future. I give myself permission to be worried about my future. Go back to that. But after these little pauses, you may find that you can't find all the drama in your life that you were in before you took that pause. So that's the simplest exercise that I've ever found. It's so simple, I can even do it because I'm not very committed yogi. So I kept saying, how do I get there all the way? First of all, I have to limit the time because if I know it's going to be 20 seconds, I can let go of everything. I can have it back in 20 seconds. So it doesn't make you like half go because, oh, we're meditating now. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I got to drop the fact that I have a meeting at 2 o'clock. Now I have to drop that and let me try to, watch my breathe. You're trying to ease in there, but the mind is frankly smarter than us. So you just go, Let me watch. It's like putting your face up to the window of a cookie machine. You're watching how they make it. And when you walk away, they're still making cookies. Or you look out the window and you see traffic. There was traffic there before you looked out the window. You're just watching it. And then you come back and you know there's still traffic. But this moment drains you of drama because drama is found in thoughts. Thoughts create drama. Drama creates angst. Everything comes out of a thought first. So, how do I find a place where there are no thoughts? Well, even for a few seconds, there I am. I learned this as a musician. I learned this as therapy for my own overactive mind. And now I share it in the book. But then a lot of the book is about what goes really better when you can find that space. And it turns out everything. Because even people that have played, you know how we learn this from music? I will talk to my first day of a class, and I'll say, think about a time that it was really important for you to play well. How did you play?
Mm.
And most of them can instantly go like, whoa, not too good. And then think about when you were just fooling around or you were in the practice room alone and it just started happening. How did you play then? Everybody says better.
Mhm.
So actually, they prove from their own experience that caring actually gets in the way. So then I will say to them, great, now that I've proven this to you, you're never going to care again, right? And then they laugh. It's remarkably similar. They laugh because they know that even if they know that not caring is going to bring a better result, they can't help it. After 3 bars, they're caring again. And that's the neurological side of it. You may know that there are things you want to do, but you never do them. And you know there's things you wish you never did anymore, but you keep doing them. And the answer to that is neurology. There are neurological pathways that are very comfortable going where they're comfortable going. So if you're a musician and you say, I believe everything Kenny said, wow, now I'm going to never care again. But the neurological pathway is to touch the piano is to be possibly in some kind of danger. Of course, danger of not sounding good. It's not real danger, you know? So a lot of the book demystifies the uh, the things we're doing. It's not just music. There's a couple of things that go better when you're in a space. If you're a computer programmer and you take that time, you drop into the space, the language starts to unfold in front of you. If you're a musician and you're trying to play well, you find that space and then the hands guide you or the voice guides you. There are singers that are so caught up with how you're supposed to sing correctly that they haven't frankly felt what singing is for decades. But to go into the space, to let the breath make a sound, and then to train the mind to say, I receive that sound, is a way of widening your whole creative universe. And it works for anything, any kind of job. A person could be cleaning toilets. And if they are in the space, it is remarkably content. They're remarkably happy to be there
Yeah.
because all the problems originate in the mind and all the solutions have to do with learning how to dance with the mind. So, in that way, the book's not unique, but it's coming from lessons I learned through music. There's also a lot of humor in the book. I'm quoting scriptures and I'm quoting TV shows because wisdom is wisdom, and I'll take it from wherever it comes. But the whole idea, and already some of the people that read have told me this, is that while you're reading it, you start to feel a creative onslaught. Like suddenly you feel yourself expanding and you may try something, knowing that there's no consequences. Whatever it is you think you want to try, it removes the blocks to trying them. It's trying to get rid of the duality of succeed and failure. Literally, if you can bless a failure, you'll find you've never fail again. Even when you do fail, it feels like a success because the true pain of failure is how you feel about yourself. No one else nearly cares as much as you do that you failed. And that feeling of self devaluation is the only thing I would call a sin.
Mhm.
This is a gift that has no negotiation. It's a gift of inestimable value, and that you let it be manipulated in your mind by how good or badly you play a musical instrument is a deep misunderstanding that causes a lot of constraint from what life could be at any moment. That's why the exercise is short and it's, drama free. I know I'm breathing. I'll watch myself do it. And now I'll do something from there. And you start finding the authentic version of yourself. What you do when you just do things is what's authentic. What you do when you're trying to show your authenticity is not. All these are lessons from music to life. And I'd like to think the book is entertaining. I like to think it has comic relief. And at the same time, I think it demystifies anything from religion to, just your own brand of spirituality. People should know that getting connected is far easier than they think. And musicians show that. They'll get connected every night and they don't think anything of it. But if this God is so high and far away, then why does he, she, it filter through that musician every night? And the musician doesn't even ask. So that's a lesson that if people said, my divine source, my creative source, is that available all the time. Doesn't matter what room I'm in and what uniform I put on. Well, then how many things can I do with a true reliance on that power source? And the only reason it feels like a risk is this old quotient of success failure. So, one of the things you work on with this process is really learning to take a moment of failure and celebrate. So, you kind of have to wait for failure. One good story about this, I've told it before. A couple of times, classical musicians have called me and they said, I read your book. That was the first book, Effortless Mastery. They said, I agree with everything. That is it. I am auditioning for the first oboe chair of the Chicago Symphony in 2 weeks. How do I do Effortless Mastery?
Oh
So
no.
I will say, well, you don't exactly do Effortless Mastery. It is something, a philosophy that you agree with, but there are exercises to practice implementing it on a daily basis if you choose. So I don't know where you'll be at. In other words, if you keep playing your instrument and let go of needing to play it well, right? You're going to find that the body plays it better than you do, and it's more reliable. And then you can use your mind to enjoy what the body is playing. So I said this to him, and I just found myself saying it. Now I've said it to whenever I get that question. I want you to commit to me right now that no matter how this audition goes, that night you're going out to celebrate. So if you completely blow the audition, you're going out to celebrate. But if you do great, you're going out to celebrate. But if you are asking me, I am saying you're going to commit to really celebrating, even if you mess it up completely. And if you do that, you're doing effortless mastery. And it turned out that the 3 or 4 times I've recommended it, nobody went in there with anything but sort of a light, almost joking attitude about themselves because they knew as they were about to embark on this drama that it didn't matter because they already promised me they were going to go celebrate that night. These kind of experiences free you from the internal chains of your own self-judgment. And it's worth, as much as we may want to do that, there are areas we simply can't do it unless we have a practice. And the practice is very incremental and it's never should be taken even too seriously. For example, the first exercise I gave you is watching it breathe. I like even saying watching it breathe rather than watching you breathe, yourself breathe. You know there's something in there that breathes. Watch it. And whenever you go there, you are actually your authentic self, the you that has no desire to show everybody what you're about, you know? And you can't go out and just do that anytime because you may not be ready. You may not have practiced enough. Just because you practice classical music doesn't mean you can do a, a classical concert like in a month. However, every day what you do is practice is letting go of the need to do it well, even for 5 or 10 minutes, and let the body freely express itself on the material. Then you spend the rest of the day doing all the things you think you need to do. But this action is a reprogram, it's a deprogramming and a reprogramming. If we are not free right now, it's not because of the pandemic. I will even go as far to say, and I'm very involved in my school, Berkeley, with gender politics and racial politics. And I will still say that any kind of constraint, the reason you feel it is not firstly because of the outer landscape. It is because of these scars or neurological patterns that have been formed. Maybe they were formed and that's where one was a victim. But the ability to change neurological patterns is now a fact of life, science. Science has affirmed a lot of things I was just saying off the top of my head 35 years ago. And I thought, well, I don't have to be right. I'm hearing it. I'm going to say it. And that's jazz. You hear it, you say it. If someone thinks you're foolish, that's their problem. So that's another lesson from music to life. So this is, I've given you, since it's one time and this is an overview of what it's about. And you guys should prompt me a little bit. At any point, I can be led by questions anyone has about the book or about this idea.
You can't, excuse me. I want to know, how long did it take you to figure this out, life to lesson?
Okay, I think I was born with some awareness of it. And when I played music, in music, I never even had the problem. In life, I've had all sorts of problems with self-image, with other people's image, with success and failure, with resentment about not getting what I want, or anger, or fear. I mean, all the stuff we all feel. That has taken, to apply it to my life, has frankly taken most of my life. But I was aware of this before I even knew it. And the first time I taught, I was commenting on the player's state of mind. And they were going, what are you talking about? And I said, well, right there, right at that moment, you really cared how good you were playing. Or right there, you thought you could be doing better. And they said, that's right. It was exactly at that moment. How'd you know it? And my first answer was, well, I don't know. But it was obvious to me. Kind of like perfect pitch. If you have perfect pitch, you don't think there's anything special about it. Because if someone plays a note, you know what note it is. But it's as obvious as what color the wall is. So you're surprised when you find out someone doesn't have it, right? I had this sense of it. Then the gift of practicing it, some teachers I had that led me, plus teaching it, I think inside the first decade, this is all I was about. And the subsequent decades, it not only was it more what I was about, but all my art was growing along the lines of this wasn't a belief, it was a reality. This is what the power of your own faith. First, you have faith in something, then it forms into a general belief, then it gets baked into a certitude, which is the wonderful and terrible aspect of faith. Faith can create heaven on earth, but faith can create a living hell. It depends on what you have faith in. So I want to have faith in the idea that someone playing when I touch the instrument, and that they could never play bad because they're, in my mind, I think of it as a divine source. I'm short on religious terminology because it carries baggage. I have baggage with a lot of religions and what has gone on in the world in the name of God. So I have a lot of baggage there, and I'm trying to work through it. But the actual experience, I not only know it, I expect it with the trigger of a touch of an instrument. I'm there. So I think I worked on it myself to come back to your question, the first 10 years. The next 10 years, someone asked me, why are you playing and it doesn't look like you're even touching the keyboard? So I found myself teaching more and more. Then they became master classes and retreats. And then I wrote my book in 96. It came out in 96. And from that point on, I was known as having a book that every artist, I mean, I get emails still today, 25 years later. I just read your book. It changed my life. And I mean, I have trouble receiving that. I'm just a piano player, but I was gifted with some knowledge, gifted with some sight. And let's just put it this way. If a person knows this is the truth, they start practicing small, insignificant times of what would just happen if for the next minute I knew the truth. What is the truth? I'm perfect. You're not perfect because you have no flaws. You're perfect because whatever you are, you're perfectly accepting it. Acceptance is like the bottom rung. If you could actually say and mean, I love my imperfections and my perfections, you have already won the game. But from there, you can continue to remove more imperfections like a hobby. I don't need this to be better because I am fed by what comes out. And I know you don't have to be a great player for it to happen because it can happen with if you're programmed right, if your neurology is set up so that the sound of you playing an instrument triggers the space. That can be programmed. It's not just the purview of musicians. It's the purview of anybody that will accept one sound. How do you think in India they do this all day? It's not exactly chords there. See, that never loses its power because of the faith and the belief and the reality of the one listening. And if someone hasn't reckoned with their mind yet, then this could drive them crazy after 30 seconds. So there's an ancient Hindu saying, and I think it's really what we're all getting there now. We all are starting to suspect this. In the mind, bondage. In the mind, liberation. I also submit that we can even be a more powerful agent of change if we attain this state where we are receiving and we're transmitting. So we're not transmitting what we think people should be, we're transmitting what we all are because we're receiving it. And that's the best possible model for music, composing, golf. It's for lessons from music to life.
Well, I it
Yeah.
was when I was doing my master's recital, and I was I was so fearful. And the whole day I was just losing my mind. And when I got out on stage, I was just so tired of it. And I did have that experience. And it went well, but I can't always. But I had practiced. I mean, I did everything in my power to have the memory and the in my fingers and in my brain. If I could not go to sleep at night and I couldn't see the notes, I'd get up and look at the score. But I had done all the work, the discipline, as you say, and then I could get there. But when I'm lazy and I don't do the work, I mean, there's no way I could find that place. But
Well,
right.
what you want to do, if when I ask, like, it's funny because I'll go back to that first week of class. I will also ask, have any of you experienced this where you're so in there that it doesn't matter if you're nervous or whatever, it
Mhm.
just plays. And everybody says they had one time,
Mhm.
maybe a couple of times,
Mhm.
and then they say, but I can't always find it. No, the truth is you can't find it, period. You happened to fall into it that day. But it's like what happens the next time? Let's say that was just a great concert and you had one 3 days later and you couldn't forget how well that one went. I almost guarantee that next one would be
Not
really
as
difficult. Yeah. Because now you have expectations you didn't have. Now the expectation is I hope I play as good as I did 3 nights ago.
hmm.
So what you want is a practice. What the experience you had, what people don't know is that it doesn't have to be that random. It can be practiced. And the more you practice it, the more you can intend to have that experience. And then after X amount of time more, you may notice that the playing of your instrument creates that space in you. You can design the neurological pathways. The good news is it's possible. The bad news is it's really, you have to be really, really patient as you go against your more recent wishes all the time. And yet you hold to the same idea. You know, when I put my hands on the instrument, I go into the space. Therefore, some of the early exercises, Maria, don't have to do with playing much. It just has to do with connecting. One finger. Then the next finger. This is so easy that you don't have to focus on playing. You can completely focus on letting go. But you are touching the instrument. And I cannot over explain how profound that is. Just the act of doing that every day, I'm touching the instrument, separating myself from my concern about music at all. It's not me playing, it's my finger. And experiencing that every day, it starts to bleed into other more practical times. It could bleed into non-musical situations when you think you have a, you know, if you're, I don't know if you're an administrator as well, but you know, you have one of those sticky meetings where you have to get to this one and to that one, and it all has to make a case. And instead, you go into the space and you find that your message just got universal and much simpler. So the trust in the space comes from several times when you've been practicing it, but you don't know where it's going yet. And then you go out and you do something and you don't know why, but it just felt like it almost did itself. And you were in a state of grace. That's another way of putting it. A state of grace for me is a state of non judgment of myself. A state of grace is acceptance at minimum, love potentially, but you know, maybe I can't always get to loving myself. But accepting myself, all I have to do is focus on my breath, and whatever was not acceptable about the moment kind of vanishes from view because you put your attention on this little gizmo in your body that breathes. I wanted to make it less spiritual, less confrontational, less baggage than anything. It's related, of course, to breathing exercises before you do Tai Chi. You know, everything runs along the same lines, but we usually lose it because we build it up too big in our minds, and the ritual of it becomes unsustainable. So, what could I do anywhere I am without even closing an eye, without having to uncross my legs or cross my legs, and immediately find my true self? This crazy little exercise gives you the immediate and portable experience. So I did give it to a friend of mine. My boss is the dean of performance at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and he said, "Man, I brought it to my choir at church on the weekend, and I just did the breathing thing with them, and they went out there and they killed. And they always said, 'Oh, Mr. Savage, can we do the breathing thing again?' And I said, 'Well, look, when I get back, let's do a Zoom for your church.' You know, it's all related. You want the freedom that is available, that's always been available.
And the breathing exercises, the meditation exercises in the book are really good. I mean, I need to read them more closely, but
Did you get the video, the audio?
I got no, I didn't, but I saw that there was an audio
Yeah,
available.
there's a link.
Okay.
Oh yeah. See, the problem with writing a meditation is that the first thing you say is close your eyes. So so that's where Jamie Abersol in the first book told me to put a CD in it. He was used to that. He did a lot of play walks. This time, of course, we don't need to do CDs. You can click on the link. These meditations, I'm reciting them and I'm playing piano behind them. And I've tried them out. They're really powerful. The
Yeah,
whole idea is that you really exercise much more in the direction of that part of me doesn't exist, just the part that's connected.
I will do those. I have the digital copy. I'm going to buy a real copy. And I love you brought in all of these wonderful truths from other religions or, well, truths like St. Francis of Assisi has always been one of my favorite saints. I grew up Catholic, and I love his peace prayer, and you make me an instrument of your peace. And I never really thought of it that way. I mean, that's,
It's
you know,
much better to be the instrument than the player. That's a lesson I learned from music.
yeah, I guess, yeah, we really are. I wish I
Well, it
had
takes
more.
practice, Maria. We
Yeah.
can have the most inspiring talks. You can read 5 really inspiring books, but nothing changes. Here's another lesson from music. You could have read the best books and heard the most profound lectures on how to play the piano.
Mm,
But
yes.
there's an obvious example. You're not going to play any piano from any of that. It's the same thing with consciousness.
Mm,
Until you adapt an exercise, the purpose of which is to specifically drop all this nonsense that seems very real to you at the time, but blocks you from your true self.
mm,
And with steady practice, and that only means you're practicing it, but you don't stop because you have a bad day. You don't stop because it didn't work. You don't stop because you think, oh, this is going to take 10 years. You don't stop because of any thoughts. It's simple as brushing your teeth.
mm.
So when you equate this practice with brushing, like brushing your teeth is a good example. And I give this example in the book. You want to be regular about something? Compare it to brushing your teeth. You're in there brushing your teeth. You're not going, wow, we're really getting somewhere here. I think in a few years, I'm going to be a champion toothbrusher. You don't have a destination. No matter how well you brush those teeth that night, without any resistance, you fully intend to brush them again in the morning. What if you felt that way about whatever you were practicing?
Mm.
Practicing a language, practicing music, practicing ballet, practicing your serve. And you really didn't care where it went. You just knew what the right exercise was, and you were waiting for the body to take over.
Mm.
Because truly in sports, you can't calculate what you're going to do. The body needs to be programmed. There's not enough of that expressed in the arts.
Mm. Yes.
I mean, even painting. Before I care what's on the canvas, I want to practice imagining that I'm not controlling the movement of the hand. Then it's not about abstract art. It's not about art. Art is only another excuse to achieve liberation. And what do people do? They make it another place where they get neurotic.
Neurotic. My
So
middle
I'm
name.
hoping this book really shows people, hey, I can do this. And if not Kenny's exercises, just understanding a consistency. I have to know for a moment that anything I did, the worst and the best, is all blessed. Hey, that was almost like a rhyme. Okay. Anything I've done, the worst and the best, is all blessed. And that if I do believe there's a God, and I never make that assertion, but everything leads to that possibility if that's your possibility. But if I do believe in God, then everybody says God is love, right? So if someone says God loves me, right? Then how would I unite with him or her or they? Because I have no idea who it is. How would I unite with that entity if I don't love myself?
Mm.
How am I supposed to feel God's love when I'm blocking it with a lack of love of myself? So my job, just to get in line, is to practice self-love and not too, gregariously either, not too dramatically. Just a little silly exercise that I keep revisiting. At least what you want to start with is the suction out of all these contracting thoughts, these what ifs, these possible bad outcomes, the regret of the past and the fear of the future. So the space, for starters, is a removal. It's not a removal. You get out of one room, you move into this other room. And in this room, there's only your breath. And that breath dominates your attention, which means to your attention, nothing else is going on.
Yes.
If you decide, well, I'm just going to do that for the rest of my life because it doesn't matter whether it works or not. Kenny said it takes a few minutes. And if I practice not needing it to succeed, I'll do it forever. The irony is that when do we stop practicing something? When we need it to succeed and we think we're ready and then it fails again and I forget this. I'm not going to ever get this. But if a person doesn't have a person should not, actually, I have this saying. This saying is so symmetrical, you could almost write it down. You could write it down. It is not my job to assess my progress. It is my job to access my process. So it is not my job to assess my progress. Because when I do, I'm usually disappointed. The ego wants more progress than is actually what happens. So therefore, every time you compare yourself to where you think you should be, you compare unfavorably. So it's not your job to think, how am I doing? Try to eliminate that. So whatever I'm practicing, it's not my job to rate or to, well, I hear that beautiful, because you got the P and the A and the P. It's not my job to assess my progress. It's my job to access my process. And once I do access it, I simply do it for the rest of my life. And the attainments come because I didn't stop. And why did we stop? Because we stopped just doing it and started to assess our progress. And we weren't very happy with the progress. That's the ego. The way you beat the ego is the way you beat the devil. I think the ego is the metaphor, the devil is a metaphor for the ego. Others may disagree. That doesn't matter to me at all. But every quality I've ever seen in a book or a movie about the devil is that it finds a hook to hook you back into desire. Well, our mind does that. So if my mind says, I've got to play good now, and I take a breath and I connect with the breath instead of that thought, I may still play badly or good, but it won't change the fact that that's what I'll be practicing tomorrow. When you have a plan that doesn't end, you can achieve as much as you'll achieve from today till death day.
Yeah, Nora, are you gonna answer the question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Joanne. Uh, Kenny, I have thought a lot about this since looking at the invitation to join you today. And that is, do you think that little kids come to being able to approach the space naturally? And do you think that over time something happens, that judgment creeps in and stifles them as well? And if we could do it as little kids, we would be way much better off. And I'd like to just add something to that happened this morning that is so beautiful in our in the space that we were in. When Wan Ying said, Elnora asked the good questions, and Joanne said, and I ask good questions too. I thought that was so beautiful. It was so spontaneous. It was in the moment. It got the judgment off of me. It got the angst off of her. And it happened like maybe a genius little kid would do it. So my question is, do little kids come to this space just naturally?
Yes.
So
The
good.
short answer is yes. Now, the
Okay.
question is, how far from that, and that's reality, how far from that reality do they go as they grow up? And that's where the environment depends. Did they grow up in a dangerous environment? Did they grow up with judging parents? Did they grow up with a too stern of a father? Did they grow up with a teacher that already understood that and that was their first teacher? Or did they grow up with a family that was so inclusive and made them feel the value that they grew up on they have a minimal problem with that because they were nurtured, their mind was nurtured in that direction. So that was their default. That's their default mode. That's where the neurology goes. In order to create doubt in them, you have to really attack them, and maybe their self-love is impregnable by that attack. So there's no question they start that way, and then it's a balancing act for a parent. How do you decide when to limit their freedom for their safety, or to help teach them how to focus their mind? There may be a time where you may want to keep going, but it's time to eat dinner or whatever. And yet, how much aimless kind of silliness, which is their way of self-expression, do you sit with and just enjoy? And that's So all those factors determine how far away, why are there people that are 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and this kind of easy connection, this sort of it's almost like a, expansion, like what's the word I was looking for? Not just flexible. It was, anyway, you know what I mean, what we've been talking about, right? Um, how much are they like that naturally? I remember once I was for my forums at Berkeley. I do a forum, and when during the pandemic, the beginning, they were all online. You could all come to them. Now we're going to school, so unfortunately, they're back to whoever happens to be in the room. But they were really great, and I would get guests, and so I had Felicia Rashad. We were friends from a different situation, and I interviewed her. And if you've seen her, the first moment that you've ever seen her, or if you haven't known her, the dignity is like, it just hits you like if you're in IMAX and the movie is called Dignity. And you're looking at this dignity. And the dignity comes from definitely inner standards of self-care. And so I said to her, I got a comment right off the bat. Why are you such a master of your own being, of your own personality? Why am I feeling so much love for you, but I feel like I could never take advantage of you? Why are you able to work on stuff without falling into the same potholes that people do, feeling bad about themselves when they're not good at it? Why are you Felicia Rashad? And she described this family, a father and a mother. That's a really nice start. And brothers and sisters. And she said, even when we didn't have a house, we always had a home. Wherever we were. There was a time they had to go public for a little while. And the mother was a great artist, and the father was the sponsor. He's the one that paid for everything and helped them, sponsored whatever the mother was doing in her artistic world, which I believe was poetry and art. And so she grew up only knowing one thing. She only found, obviously, racial discrimination when she left the home and started to just be a person walking down the street. It was unfamiliar to her because she didn't start that way, but she's certainly well aware of it. But she radiates because of how she was launched into this world. So there are definitely many factors that can contribute to how free can someone be, how much support will they have for that in this lifetime. But do kids have it? They always have it right off the bat. Put a
Thank
kid on
you
a
so
piano.
much. Thank you so much. You worked that answer. You worked it. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say, and you just elaborated so much on it. I'm gonna
Ah,
always remember it. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Well, I'm glad you didn't say the opposite. Boy, I only asked you, when the heck were you going to shut up? So I'm glad that worked out to our advantage.
Sure, sure.
What else?
Well,
It
So,
really,
Mr.
it really is
Kenny,
a gift to be able to share this stuff.
I understand. Let me ask you this, Mr. Kenny. Are you teaching classes online? Piano lessons online now?
I'm not
Virtually?
teaching private lessons. Well, I teach at Berkeley, but they're not online unless for pandemic reasons I may have to Zoom one week or whatever. It's still touch and go. I stopped doing online piano lessons. What I have done, and if you send them my email, I'll forward it to my assistant. There are times when I do classes. Sometimes in the summer, I'll do another class on effortless mastery, and it'll be 12 weeks of really practicing this self mastery and then connecting it to your instrument or connecting it to something else. And the next, I did it last summer. This fall, I did one called Harmony. I have ways of doing harmony that it's you've heard it before, but no one ever explained it this way before. There's no reason that anybody can't do it. And I'm going to do lines, melodies in February, March. So if you just want to know what I'm doing, it could even be more of these things, and it's open to the public. And you may need to hear one thing again. Nobody gets this right the first time because all their neurological patterns are already going the other way. This life is hard. The pandemic sucks. Racism in America, it's not inaccurate. The question is not the reality of racism. The question is, where is my state of mind? And then you have to ask yourself, where am I most helpful to something that's beyond my control? What state of mind makes me most helpful? And a lot of times the answers are the opposite of what we thought. You know? So yeah, if you tune in, if you're just on my mailing list, you'll know if anything is going to happen that would contribute to your sense of freedom on or off the instrument.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you. Can you play us a melody?
I can. What would you like
All
to hear?
right. I don't know anything you want to play. Well, something jazz. I like jazz.
All right. Well, I'll start with something that's soul,
Okay.
and then I'll let jazz infiltrate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing is one of the greatest modern day saints was celebrated yesterday, right?
Mm.
Actually, I'll give you a better view. Which way? Hey, there you go. Ha! There's the jazz.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Wow, you're welcome. You're so welcome. What fun. You know,
Wonderful.
if you
Wonderful.
if you receive this instrument, it'll only make you feel good. But that's just a musical thing. If you receive this instrument, then it'll make us feel a lot better than we've been feeling.
I've always wanted to play piano, learn how to play piano, but I didn't want to go through that practice that 1, 2, 3, what you know, that ding ding ding. I wanted to go straight to playing a song.
Well, you know, there's no reason you couldn't start today. It is finding just the right thing that you could get used to. The idea is not learning new things, it's actually owning a couple of things. Even if you find how you can do this. If someone puts your hands there and you can't believe you're doing it, right? Then you say, well, now I want you to practice that until your hands do that and you don't. And now your first lesson was already your best lesson. You
Oh, okay.
found out that your hands can play something, and now you can go into that space of listening
Mm-hmm.
and you learn something else. It doesn't have to be the whole roll out the whole, this is the way you play the piano. It could be learning to do a little of this and a little of that, but not moving on until you're having fun doing it.
Right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. I'm just looking through my notes here. I don't know if you want to talk about the epilogue or not in your book.
Oh, you mean how it finished? Well, I think time is a bit of a factor. As I was telling you the other day, normally we could just go. I don't care, but I'll have to
Oh, yeah, we are
expect it
close
to
to the
return
end.
to the recording session.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
at
Well,
what we're calling 12:30. Um, yeah, no, it's really kind of save it to read. I think there's some drama. There's some drama throughout the book for sure because I'm
mhm.
also charting my own pathway from knowing these truths in music and how much longer it's taken me to practice them in my life. But as I practice them in my life, I'm becoming more the same kind of person I am when I'm not playing.
Okay. Yeah.
I have the opposite problem than most people. They're doing okay, and then they go to play, and then they feel terrible.
Hmm.
I feel great no
I
matter what I do.
see it.
I've been trying to get the same feeling away from the piano.
Oh,
It's coming. It's coming. It's incremental. Never ends.
well, it's everyone, please get this book. I have a digital copy, like I said, but I'm going to get the hard copy and just lots of wonderful information. And I'm in, I'm going to do it. I am.
So, Mr. Kenneth, on this project that you're working on today with this other lady in the studio, when is it going to come out?
I'm not sure. She's a great Indian singer.
Mm.
Oh,
And this is not Indian music. She decided to, she has two grandchildren. She wanted to record all, when she was a little girl in India, she came here and achieved great success in the finance world. But she's also a marvelous Indian singer. So she wants to record all the songs she heard when she was a child and that people sang to her. And now she sings, I don't know, like 20 songs to her grandchildren before they go to sleep. And she's recording all these songs. Hopefully, it's for grandchildren around the world. That's the idea. So I don't know exactly when it's going to come out, but there are a lot of my CDs that are, available. I guess the last one I would really recommend was the last one I did. It was a solo record called The Space, which is like the book, The Space. And there is a lot of space on that record, but there's all kinds of feelings as I become the instrument in the studio, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, many things, anything. But yeah, this will be beautiful. If you've ever heard of Betty Buckley, she was a Broadway star. She's the one that won the Tony for Grisabella in Cats, and then she was on TV a lot. She's been done movies, but we did a series of really beautiful records, mostly in the '90s.
Her name Betty Buckley.
Betty Buckley, you know, like
Okay.
Buckley.
And that solo song you said called The Space, is that on YouTube? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, parts. I think parts of it are. I think you can, and you
Okay.
can find Betty and I a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
It's getting to that time, 11:26. Yes, and I know you've got to get to the other studio to do your recordings. It's been a pleasure.
For me too.
And thank you, Book Club, for being at this meeting. And so, do you have time for one more question and then we'll go? Does anybody else have
Sure,
one
if
question?
I'm capable of making it a short answer.
Okay.
That's the big
Please,
question.
please send one in your email so she can send it to us, please, so we can follow you. Thank you.
Yeah, you have it, Maria, right? My
Okay.
email?
Yes, I do. I can, and Wang Ying has it as well.
Yes, I do. I do have Mr. Werner's email. Well, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. This is just a fabulous talk, full of wisdom, full of life lessons, food for thoughts. And I really liked your statement. It's not my job to assess my progress. It's really my job to access my process. And this is what I've written down. Probably I need to follow. I can't wait to read the book, to practicing harmonizing myself, practicing self-love, free oneself from self-judgment. That is one thing definitely learned, because the mind is truly a powerful thing. And I really, really enjoyed this talk. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to read that book.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic. Believe me, you don't know. It's not an overstatement to say what a joy it is to give it away. And you'll never know the joy of giving it away till you give it away. I love that it brings some air between the ears of somebody I'm talking to, or a smile breaks out. So it's just as much of a joy for me as I hope it is for you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
thank you, Namni, for coming and visiting online with us today. We appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, Wang Ying.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to head out back into the music world, and I'm going to say goodbye.
Thank you, Mr.
Lovely.
Kennan. Bye.
Thank you.
Great to spend some time with you.
Have
Thank
some
you.
fun.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, Maria, for hosting this wonderful book talk. And I just want to do an announcement for our next month's book talk, which will be on Tuesday, February the 15th. In celebrating of Black History Month, we will have a local author, Alice Faye Duncan. She's a renowned and a prolific local author, and she has a new book coming out called Evicted: The Struggle for the Right to Vote. Alice Faye Duncan will be our speaker on Tuesday, February the 15th at the 10:15 a.m. So that will conclude our book club meeting for today. And thank you all so much for joining us, and I'll see you next month.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you,
Bye,
Wayne.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Maria.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nami, for joining us. Y'all have a wonderful day.